But today, I want to encourage some mothers and some women. Today, I want to get you to, or even remind you of some things that are within you. Every now and then, just as a human being, life will get you tired. Life will have you questioning and wondering. And in truth, that's the reason why we need deep relationship with God. Because believe it or not, as we study the word, we go back to even the beginning in Genesis, we were not designed to do this by ourselves. This life was designed to be lived with God in it. That's why it scares me that it seems as if we have so many Christians, quote unquote, who live godless lives, have no God conscience, not aware, say anything, do anything as if God is not present. That's a whole nother seminar. But when we began to study women throughout the Bible, I found and convinced that there's something extraordinary within the nature of a woman. Now, mind you, you were genetically designed with an inner strength that can be tapped into. An inner strength that can be tapped into. I remember in the late 70s, there was something that was on the news. There was a child that had got trapped under a car, and a woman with no drugs in her system picked the car up, pulled the child out from under the car at the same time. I remember my eldest brothers, it was before I was born, my eldest brother, my eldest sisters were on the way to Los Angeles from Pomona. And that was when we had a station wagon. Hello? My mother was carrying me, and her and one of her friends, Rosita Sargent, were on their way to Los Angeles, and they had a flat tire on the side of the freeway. And they got out, and Mama, no man in the car, Mama got out to help change the tire. And as they was putting it up, and that was before we had hydraulic jacks. Anybody remember bumper jacks? You got to be a little older. You can't be a youngster. You remember bumper jacks? There was a slit in your bumper, metal bumpers, and you would take the jack, and it had a little hinge on it, and you put it up under in that slit, and you would crank it up, and it stood on a wrought iron. Y'all remember that? Well, that bumper jack slipped out from under the car with Mama's 6 kids in the car. And Mama said, oh no, oh no, oh no, I don't want this car to go over the freeway. And she grabbed the car and held it till one of my brothers got the jack up and put it back up under it while she was still pregnant. Ain't got nobody. There's some strength in you. It's God ordained. It's in you. It's in you. It's in you. It's in you. It's a God ordained thing. You tap into it when you need to. It's a strength that comes out of a woman during a fight or flight circumstance. You know the circumstances. It's when you were backed in a corner. And either I'm going to run or I'm going to fight like a dog. Do I have anybody? So instead of running, you find yourself fighting. Instead of cowering down and crying, if you cry, you're going to cry while you fight. Oh, yes. Biblically, women are considered the weaker vessels. That's what the Bible calls Now. But I'm convinced it's in that physically and structurally you built a little different. That's all. In addition, some cases women are emotionally, not all, emotionally more vulnerable than men. However, when it comes to the heart, that part of the human that it dictates how deep your desires really go. Because see, while a man will walk away, you won't. When it comes to the heart, how determined one must really be especially when it comes to defending or protecting who you need to or what you need to. This is mine and I ain't gonna let you take it. Hello. Hands down, women will rise to the top when it comes to matters of the heart. No wonder the Old Testament prophet heard a word from God. I mean, Israel was in trouble. They were in trouble. They were going through. An Old Testament prophet heard a word from God, and the word was, call for the cunning women. Call for the mourning women. Call for the ones that'll pray. He didn't say, go get the prophets, go get the priests. He said, call for the mourning women. Call for the ones that'll wail. Call for the ones that'll scream and holler and will fight in the spirit until something happens. Call for them. Call for them. No, I don't need you soldiers with all their armor. I don't need nobody running in here with no shield and sword. I need somebody that know how to get down on their knees and fight until something happens. Pray until things change. I need. That's what God told the prophet. Go get him. Go. Don't call him. Call her. Jochebed, you've heard her name before. She was the one who, when Israel was in trouble because they were in captivity in Egypt, she was the one that decided that she was going to cover her own. And there was so many Israelites in Egypt. Do you remember the story? Come on, help me, Sunday school people. There were so many Israelites in Egypt that Pharaoh started getting scared. Now, you remember they came there because of Joseph. Remember the Prince of Egypt story? Joseph was there, and then because he was there, his people were elsewhere, but they needed to eat. And then because of Joseph, there was food in Egypt. So his other brothers showed up, his 11 brothers showed up, and they brought all of their kids with them, and they continued to multiply while they were in Egypt. So while they were in Egypt, looked around, and it was more Israelites, as many Israelites as it was Egyptians. So Pharaoh got an idea. He said, wait a minute, if we keep letting these little brothers multiply like this, we're going to look up one day and they're going to take Egypt from us. So they enslaved them, and not only did they enslave them, but then at some point they decided we can't keep letting them give birth. So what they did was attempted some sort of genocide. And in their attempt to do this genocide, they said every child that's 2 years or younger, we're just going to have to slay them. We're going to kill them. And any baby that's born, we're just going to have to, just take her, because then we won't have to worry about them overtaking us later. Baby boy, mind you. So Jochebed gives birth to this little baby. He's a boy. She did it in secret. And while she was there in secret, there was a handmaiden by the name of Puah who was called by God to cover her. Do you know you got some sisters that's called by God to cover you? While you were over there running around by yourself, while you sitting in the corner acting like you the only one going through, you have some sisters that God has put in place. That was free. It's not on my notes. It won't cost you a dime, okay? Just take it home and you'll have that with you. But you have someone. Stop thinking you awkward. You ain't the only one awkward, baby. Somebody else is over there feeling like they awkward too. So stop it. Stop it. It's people more intelligent than you that feel like they awkward. It's people that got more money than you that feel like they're awkward. So stop playing games and let God put in your life who he needs to cover you. to cover you. I told you I was going to preach to women today, so just let me preach, all right? Let me preach. So Jochebed is covered by Puah, and then there's another woman whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, who was also a handmaid, and they were covering her. And she gives birth to this baby, and they hid the baby and helped her hide the baby. And then one day, the baby got to the point to where it was crying too much. And so they took the baby, and anybody know the story yet? They took the baby, and they built a basket. And they weaved the basket, and after they weaved the basket, the Bible said they put pitch in it, which was some tar, and so that the basket would float. And Miriam, who was Jochebed's daughter, took the basket and floated it down the Nile. And as they floated it down the Nile to save it, looked up, and Pharaoh's daughter was bathing in that Nile. Pharaoh's daughter looked and said, "Do I hear a baby?" They fetched the basket, and she took the baby and said, "Well, I'm going to take him home." Do you know that God used her? She looked and saw it was a Hebrew baby. Miriam standing in the bulrushes watching. And she looked up and saw Pharaoh's daughter, and they caught eyes. And Pharaoh's daughter said, "Do you know any Hebrew women that could possibly nurse this baby for me?" She said, "Oh yeah, I know somebody. I'll get you one, don't worry." So Moses' mother ended up nursing Moses, even though he was going to be raised by somebody else. Little did she know she was blessed by the Almighty to become an instrument that would save a nation. Because she wouldn't let her baby be the one. Then there is Rizpah. Somebody say Rizpah. I said, "Well, I ain't never heard of no Rizpah. Is that in the Bible?" Rizpah was a woman who was a concubine. She was one of Saul's concubines. And because seeing their culture then, you could have wives and you had concubines. Wives were who you married. Concubines were side chicks. Well, it's in the book. I didn't make it up. It is not me telling the story. I didn't write it. I'm just telling it. Rizpah was one of Saul's concubines. She had 2 sons by him. 2 sons. Saul had got in trouble with some Gibeonites, and they were his enemies. And he promised them something that he did not deliver on. So because he did not deliver, they owed him. They said to him, "You owe us because you didn't deliver." So to pay, they came, or to make him pay, they came, and they ended up, in fact, killing his sons. They were savages. They were not Christian people. They were not godly people. They were not Hebrews. They were not Israelites. They were savages. And so because he didn't come through, the Gibeonites came and killed the 2 boys. Now, their thing was they were going to take the boys and hang them out in the woods, in the wilderness. And to disgrace their father and to disgrace them, they would let vultures come, rip apart the bodies, and then jackals would come, and what was left they would take off of the bodies, and then eventually crows would come and pick what was left off of their bones as they would be scattered by these animals. Knowing what could happen to those men's bodies, those young men's bodies, Rizpah took some sackcloth, threw it down on the ground around the stakes that their bodies hung on, and for months stood there waving off every beast, every animal, waved off, come on, waved off every bird, waved off every jackal. You're not getting the body of my child because I'm going to bury him with dignity. You're not getting these boys. These boys are going to be buried with dignity. So some of us, we trying to imagine our mind because we have such great culture in America. We're trying to figure out what is this wild story about. But some of you, you've been waving off some jackals. You've been waving off some vultures. Oh, no, you're not getting my child. I know what you did to my life, but you ain't doing it to her. I know what you did to my brother, but you're not going to do it to my son. Oh, glory. You've been waving them off because you want your child to have some integrity. No, you're not going to say, your friends can sell dope, you can't sell dope. Your friends can bring their girlfriends to their house, but you can't bring no girl here. No, y'all stay in the kitchen. Waving the vultures and the animals off so that she could bury her sons with dignity. Look around and say, I was just trying to protect them. Well, they calling you a bad mother. Oh, okay. I'll be a bad mother. Anyway. So this represents a uniquely powerful purpose which God has designated for women to achieve his plan, which would otherwise in some cases be impossible if it wasn't for mama speaking up. Hello? While they say, mama's baby daddy's maybe, when he ain't even trying to claim her, he ain't even trying to stand in the gap. You stand there, and when things were not even seem like was going to be impossible, you made it happen because of the strength. Now in Matthew, I'm almost done preaching, I promise. In Matthew chapter 15, round about verse 21. Tells the story of Syrophoenician woman. That's what Mark calls her. Matthew calls her Canaanite. Syrophoenicia because she was from Phoenicia in Syria, not from Phoenicia in Africa. Syrophoenician woman. In verse 21, then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. One of your versions is going to say she's demon possessed. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she crieth after us. He said she wants attention. The disciples were thinking she wants attention from us. She wants us, but he answered and said, I am not sent. What did he say? I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He said, I'm here for the Israelites right now. He said, then came she and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Help me. But he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread. He said, it's not right. It don't make sense. It's not right. For meat to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. Cast it to dogs. And she said, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. For the next few moments, next I'm going to take for a message. So you ain't started preaching yet? Yeah, nah. What next I'm going to take for a message topic, message thought? When a mother fights. When a mother fights. Played with this a little bit. Thought about calling it Fight Like a Mother, but y'all, you know, when somebody get all messed up in their head. But when a mother fights. This story, Jesus walks upon a woman who is in fact Syrophoenician woman. She's not a Jew. She's not a Hebrew. Jesus, at this juncture in his walk, at this juncture in his life, only came for the Jews. Had to, because that was the plan of God. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. He had to be rejected by them first before he could go to Calvary's cross, die on the cross, rise 3 days later, and rise with all power in his hand and say, now you can come boldly before the throne of grace. Whosoever will, let him come. But he had to offer himself to them first. And so here he is now just wanting to share with the Jews, but this woman comes and said, hey, my daughter's demon possessed. She needs help. When a person is demon possessed, they do things that's outside of their mind. When a person is demon possessed, it's not them, it's the spirits in them controlling them. It's speaking to them. It's telling them to do things. I'll never forget, and many of you have heard me tell, I was preaching in Florida, and there was a young woman that they said needed prayer, and I was in a building that sat about 500 people, and as I stood in the front, there was a bunch of benches all the way to the back. She sat on the back row, and I looked, and I said, hey, if you want prayer, come on up here. And before anything, it was weird because as I said, do you want prayer? Can you just come on up here? She looked and she stared, and it wasn't even human. It was odd. And out of her mouth came the deepest, most disgusting sounding voice that said, we ain't going up there. I said, oh, okay. I realized she was demon possessed. They had told me that you know, one of the gentleman that was helping me, he said, hey, some of these people are scared right now. I said, what's her name? They said her name's Sharonda. Sharonda, come on, if you go in the back, I'll pray with you. We ain't going in the back. Oh, okay. So I ended up climbing over the benches. Because there was too many people around me. I'm climbing over the pews and got back there and laid hands on her. And when the Lord delivered her, she was 5 shades lighter. I went back to that church 8 years later, she was still there. But before that, tormented in her sleep, couldn't sleep, all tormented, just angry for no reason and lashing out at everybody. Nobody knows what's going on. So this woman has this daughter who is tormented, and she comes to Jesus and says, my daughter is vexed. When she gets to Jesus, and he kept walking. He acted like he didn't hear her. She's like, Lord, help me. And he looked at her and said, it's not meet for me to give the children's bread. Children who? Children of Israel, Abraham's seed. It's not meet for me to give the children's bread to dogs. Now, dogs was not a term Jesus made up. Dogs was a term that Jews were using to refer to other nationalities of people. Jesus didn't make it up. It was a part of their culture. So when he said that, he's like, basically, you're not Jewish, so we can't. So it would be if somebody that is well off looked at you and say, you know, y'all from that side of the, you know, track, so can't. But Jesus heard something that caught his attention. She said, yes, Lord, but even the dogs can get the crumbs that fall from the master's table. She said, God, I don't want no steak. I'll pass on the entree. I don't need the salad. I don't even have to have the dessert. Just give me some crumbs. Just give me, I'll take what you give me. Come on. You just, I don't need a lot. I ain't trying to get all of theirs. I just need some for me. This woman fought. Have you ever had to fight what was going on in your mind to make something come out your mouth that would get somebody's attention? Have you ever had to fight past the rejection? Because she had been rejected. I don't know about you, but I can't stand being rejected. Don't tell me no. Don't tell me no. But she was rejected. Anybody like no? I don't believe anybody likes hearing no. That's why I can never be a salesperson. Any salespeople in here? I can never be a salesperson because once you say no, I'm like, forget it. Don't nobody want this stuff. I done talked to 10 people, and when I was selling insurance, they said, you got to hear 10 no's before you get a yes. Oh, the no's is supposed to excite you. No, it don't excite me. No mean nobody want this, and y'all making us sell it to people. Well, she got rejected, but she wasn't taking no for an answer. She got rejected, but she looked up and she said, look, just I'm going to fight past what I'm feeling because my daughter needs you. My daughter needs you. Come on, she needs you. So just give me the crumbs. Just give me a little bit. I don't have to have it all. Just give me the crumbs. And then Jesus stops. And he said, wait a minute. I've not found such greater faith even in Israel, in the whole household of Israel. I've never seen this greater faith. I told you no, but you still standing there saying, just give me a little bit. So her faith in Jesus, made him, because again, his miracles at this point was only for Israel. It wasn't for the Gentiles yet. Now God did promise Abraham, I'll make you the father of how many nations? Okay, so Israel was only one. So he said, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. Many nations. The Hebrews, it was 12 tribes, but there was only one nation. I'm going to make you the father of many nations. So what Jesus did was he looked around and said, I ain't seen such greater faith even in Israel. So it wasn't even time yet, but he stepped out of this dispensation down to where she was and said, I'll do it. Healed that daughter, made sure that daughter was set free, and then step back. Did you ever, come on. Is there only a woman, now come on, only a woman with deep faith, only a woman that's ready to fight for their child would make God stand still. Only God. And look around and make him, only a woman, say fight. When a woman fights, God shows up. You ain't fighting by yourself. When a woman fight, come on, when a sanctified woman, when a woman has decided Jesus is Lord, when she fight, she ain't fighting by herself. I give you the keys to the kingdom. Whatsoever you bind on earth shall be bind in heaven. Whatsoever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So while you binding up stuff, while you saying, devil, not in my family, all of heaven get behind you. While you saying, devil, not my child, all of heaven get behind you. While you saying, I'm going to get past this fear, all of heaven get behind you. When you saying, I'm going to get past this anxiety, all of heaven gets behind you. When you standing there and said, I'm not going to just stand here and take no licks, I'm going to fight back. All of heaven gets behind you. When you start praying in the spirit, holy God, when you praying and words don't come out no more. When you praying and only tears become your prayer. Holy, 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 holy God. When your moaning and groanings of your heart become your prayer. When you fight, All of heaven get behind you. They'll feel like they winning, but you mess around and fight. Father going on to be with the Lord, but I'll never forget at some point he got into some kind of little spat with my mother, and I'll never forget my mother went for his throat. It was in court. And my father called my brother and said, Marvin, your mama trying to ruin me. Marvin said, you know who she is, you shouldn't have messed with her. Why you mess with her? All you had to do was be nice. Real mothers unleash their deepest desires at Jesus' feet. And when seemingly rejected, persevere. One of my oldest friends, and many of you heard me tell the story, but one of my oldest friends' testimony was this. They were raised in L.A., and at some point he decided he was going to be a gangbanger, and he's selling dope, and then his mother messed around and ended up at a little church in Pomona. Elder L. Green Jr. was going on to be with the Lord. He was the pastor. He told that woman, he said, if you want your son, she would get up every day at 12 noon prayer. That's when the saints would actually come to church at 12 o'clock and pray. But she would come to 12 noon prayer in a little lunch hour, and she'd pray. And every day at 12 noon prayer, she'd stand up and testify, pray for my son because I want the Lord to deliver him from drugs, and I want the Lord to deliver him from being a gangbanger, and all that. And one day, Elder Green took a church key off of his, and he had several of them. He took a church key off his ring, and he said, if you want your son to be delivered here, take this key. And when nobody else is here, you come and you pray and believe God. She began to take that key, and when nobody was at church, she'd show up early in the morning and show up midday and show up when nobody was around, and she'd pray. Now, the reason why he knew to do that was because when my pastor was in the streets, an alcoholic and doing his own thing, not coming home and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, his wife's pastor gave her a key and said, you want your husband to be saved? Take this key. And that alcoholic became a pastor because that woman would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and pray and fight in the spirit and say, Lord, save my husband, deliver him. And he was driving a trash truck, so he would be up early in the morning, and he would pass by that little church and see her car in front of the church, and she'd be the only one there, only car at the church. And he would say, oh yeah, she in there praying, she in there praying. And his testimony was, I used to call her a praying monkey. He said, but now I'm a praying monkey, because he would show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock, and then 12, 3 times a day. He said, now I'm a praying monkey. Because the thing is, when you fight. So he gave that woman the key and said, pray for your son. So years later, he preached a message entitled, She Fought with the Devil and Won. She fought with the devil and won, because that son had drank one day so much that he had passed out, sitting at his cousin's house, passed out on the floor. And he woke up the next morning, and he had oil all over his head. And he woke up, someone, what is this? And his cousin said, man, you passed out last night. And after you passed out, your mama showed up. And she stood over you and said, you're not going to have my son. And she began to walk around you, marching and screaming, talking about God save him, make him a preacher, deliver him, set him free. He looked up and laughed and said, I ain't no preacher. 3 years later, it was flying all over the country preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. When a woman fights, when a woman fights, when a woman fights, Some of you heard my testimony, many, some haven't, but I'm here because a woman fought. My mother was in Arkansas burying her grandmother. On the Sunday morning, she was flying back. And while she was on the plane that Sunday morning, they offered her some food. And she said, something's going on. I can't eat. And she said, they said, the food's free, just have, something's happening, I can't eat. And she felt something in her just to fast, just to wait. Later that day when she got to California, she made a phone call, and the phone rang, 2323 Logan Street in Pomona. Phone rang, and Vivian, who was one of the women from our church, was living in and helping Mama in the house. More so Mama was helping her, but whole nother story. But she was there, and she picked up the phone, and Mama said, she didn't say hi, she didn't say hello, she said, what's wrong? And Vivian said, Sister Williams, did somebody call you? She said, no, something happened, and I know it, I feel it in my spirit. Couldn't eat on the plane, what's going on? And she said, well, Sister Williams, it was a car accident in front of the church today. Frank went to pick up Martha and Mark from Sunday school, and a drunk driver hit the car. She said, Mama said, well, what's going on? Where everybody at? She said, well, Frank's fine and Martha's fine, but Mark, he's not doing well. And by the time she got to the hospital and they began to explain how body was thrown from the car at least 8 feet up in the air, came down on my head and had a concussion. Not only that, but skull was bleeding, and skull was cracked and brain was bleeding. And so they explained to her that I was in a coma and that there was probably no hope. And they said, well, don't hope for the best, but we're gonna do our best. But he's probably gonna be a vegetable. And they said, oh, well. And then, well, but don't worry, because there's a possibility that if he come out, he'll just be retarded. Don't. He won't remember nothing. He won't know nothing. But he could. And they explained that to her, and she went outside and looked up in the sky and said, God, I'm not going to eat and I'm not going to drink until you raise my son. I'm not going to eat, not going to drink till you raise him. And then when days that went by, and she would go to church, because we had church on Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays. Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And she didn't skip a service and was going to work every day. And she wasn't at church and wasn't at work, she'd be at the hospital. And so on one Tuesday night, she stood up, and it looked crazy. Everybody got quiet. It was just a week or so after. Nobody wanted to say nothing. And she stood up in church and said, great I am. God's going to raise my son. And she said, I told him I won't eat and I won't drink until he raises him. And one of the old church mothers came up to her and said, Sister Williams, you can't do that to God. You can't tell God that. And she said, I'm sorry, I already did. Already did. And she would not eat. And she would not drink. And several days went by. Almost 2 weeks went by, and when you don't eat, weight start dropping off of you. And so she's going back and forth, and her weight started to drop. My brother Marvin looked up and said, Mama, we're about to lose Mark. We can't lose you two. And she said, Marvin, God's not going to take Mark away from us. God's going to raise him. 21 days later, 21 days after she had said that, sit at the hospital, and the Lord touched this body. God touched it. It wasn't nothing the doctors did. They couldn't claim that they do anything. They looked around and called it a phenomena. Because that's what you have to call a miracle, because you can't explain it. That's what you have to call a miracle, because your hands ain't in it. There's nothing you chose, but God did it. Because she refused. She fought. She fought. When a woman fights, They tell me that when my pastor came to see me after the Lord had raised me, they was trying to figure out if my brain was scrambled. And I remember my pastor's wife, she said, "Hey, Mark, I'm 5 years old. Do you remember the scripture you taught? Any of the scriptures we taught you?" And I began to quote John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me." She began to just praise the Lord. Why? Because I wasn't supposed to be able to remember anything. I wasn't even supposed to be able to recognize my own mama. But God, when a woman fights, is there anybody ready to fight? Just keep fighting. Keep fighting. Sometimes you're going to have to fight for your grandchildren. Do I have anybody more? You're going to have to fight for your grandchildren. You're going to have to fight. Fight. Sometimes you're fighting for somebody that's not even your child. Your nephew needs somebody to fight for him. Hello? Your niece needs somebody to fight. God is calling you. And I want to encourage you, those of you, you've been fighting along the way, keep on fighting. You've been fighting. I want to encourage you, don't get discouraged now. Look around at somebody and say, "What just happened?" It can't stop you. Come on, you still got a fight in you. 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 Tap into that inner strength that God has given you. Tap into it. He's giving it to you. Connect that with the Holy Ghost. Hello? Connect that with the Holy Ghost. See, if you turn around and combine what you have with a real faith in God, come on, somebody say, "Lord, I believe in you." You got to combine what you have with faith in God, and then you're going to see supernatural results. You'll be standing on the other side of a victory saying, "I didn't know I could come out of this." You'll be standing on the other side saying, "I don't know how I got through it, but I done made it." Hello, you'll make it through one of the most horrendous situations you ever experienced and start shouting and looking for your next miracle. Do I have anybody? Oh, God, while others are crying, "Whoa, and I can't do this, and I don't know I'm going to get out," you'll be saying, "Oh, God, we got to get over this. Come on, we got to go to the next level." You'll be looking around and declaring that you're going to come out. Look around at somebody right now and say, "You coming out." You may not feel like it right now, baby, but it's in you. You coming out. I'm done preaching. Y'all done got quiet on me. Oh, my God. When a woman fights, it's in you, honey. Don't cower down. Don't cower down.